Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Liam's Hockey here on a brand new week, the second week of March in 2021. Welcome to it. The show brought to you each and every time by Hosey & Brown Automotive as our title sponsor. And we do have a new garage to promote as per their client list that they're providing me on a weekly basis here. And it's Nick's Automotive Garage, Nick Georgiesus, who has recently retired from the Ottawa Fire Department. So we'll have a few words on him and, of course, our tremendous operation on Enterprise Avenue at the end of the show, as per usual. And really happy to announce a second sponsor that's going to be on board here off and on over the next few weeks, and that's AdSeal. And they are run by another class of 78er from St. Pius. I got Rod Brown and Hosey & Brown, and now I got Mark Cullen from AdSeal. And we'll tell you about their fantastic operation in just a couple minutes' time. And really excited to say that Mark not only taking on a little advertising here on Liam's Hockey, but he's also going to be the sponsor for my whiskey shot at the end of the show. So love him for that, obviously. And we'll have some fun with that in, as you guys know, if you watch this in a few minutes' time when we wrap this puppy up. In the meantime, update on the old hand here. Got the cast changed today and the bandages. If you're just watching this for the first time, had a little operation 6 days ago. Nothing serious, just just cleaning up some stuff in the hand. Had the same one done last week in the left, and other than still a little bit of an issue, but it's, hey, you know, I can hold a golf club and I can hold a pint and I can make a fist. So what more do you really need? It's all good. And doing all right for that. So AdSeal is a new sponsor. Hosey & Brown on as per usual. Nick's automotive service on board as a garage for today. And now time to talk a little hockey. So I'm trying to rip through this. Try not to drag it on. Let's start with the most telling topical stories of the day. The Tom Wilson suspension. Tom's an idiot, and he's a hazard. I mean, I was thinking about it, you know, after the suspension was announced, went to bed, was thinking about all the guys that I know. See, back in the day, when pro hockey started, when I say back in the day now, I'm talking 100 plus years ago. Back in those days, the suspensions and or how they policed matters for egregious acts on the ice were fairly frequent. The game was so violent then that the overwhelming majority of fans today would curl up into a little ball with their thumb in their mouth, crying for their mother if they got transported back in time and watched hockey at the turn of the last century through the first 2 decades of play. But then you hit a run, even through, say, the violence of the Eddie Shore era and into the Rocket Richard era and the Gordie Howe era. For example, Gordie Howe played 26 years in the NHL, played 32 years of pro hockey, was suspended 3 times. Rocket Richard played 18 times in the NHL. He was suspended 5 times in 18 years. Tom Wilson has been suspended 5 times in the last 4 years. I mean, look, the guy's a moron. He doesn't get it. He's on the fast track to Rafi Torres, Matt Cook. He's become that guy. And for the people who defend him, well, you got the 3 types, right? You got the Capital fans, blinders on. You've got the fans who watch it in super slow motion say, well, wait a minute. The hit actually came into the shoulder area first, which I know technically it did. And then by the time it came up and Carlo should have had his head up and, you know, all the rest, morons, idiots. And then you've got, who's the third one? I'm trying to remember. There's a third classification of fan anyway that just doesn't get it. They just don't get it. He charged in there. He drove his head into the glass. It was careless. It was reckless. It was targeting. And I called it. I pulled a little Don Cherry here. I went on Twitter and said he'll get 5 to 7. He got 7. Prorated over a full season. That would be 10 games. And I think now the stage is set for the big one. And he'll get it. It's inevitable. It's coming. I don't think he can change his style. And look, that's not only on him. I want to make that perfectly clear. If you're an owner of an NHL team and you want something changed or you're really, really upset, you go to your president, if you have one, maybe your GM or whatever, or you'll take the ball into your own court, you'll take matter into your own hands, you'll contact Bill Daly and Gary Bettman, or you'll rally the troops, get some support from the other ownership groups, and you'll say, hold on a second here. Like, we've got either an epidemic on officiating or the offside rule or whatever. Like, owners, there's a reason there's a league. It's because of the owners. It's the thing about the NHL, right? It's a professional business that is collectively bargained between the ownership group and the players. Those that play the game collectively bargain how they want to play the game, all the rules, all the trappings and everything else, with those that pay them. So you, me, and the media, and the man in the moon, and everybody else can go fly a kite. We can go on social media, cry like stuck pigs, but at the end of the day, they'll do their own thing. And to an extent, for the most part, it works, right? We've got a great sport, tons of talent, tons of greatness, tons of great games, tons of great plays, and tons of great players every single solitary night that hockey's on. Now, with the good, you got to take the bad, and you got to take the warts. There's going to be some. And I always say, and I said it to my kids for years growing up, it's only a tragedy if you don't learn from it. So now you've established a benchmark of sorts, because you had 20 games for Tom Wilson once before. He appealed it. Even though he had served 16, he got it down to 14, and that was just for financial purposes. So he didn't get dinged for all this. That's the thing, too, about being a repeat offender. Being a repeat offender is widely misunderstood. What that means is in terms of what you can be fined, how much money you can lose if you're in that repeat offender window. When you are an offender, regardless of how far back it goes, and in the case of Tom Wilson, not very far, that all comes into play. So in this case here, the NHL said, look, it wasn't a headshot. It was an egregious boarding call, and we're giving him the suspension for that. And, okay, fair enough. I mean, whatever. Goes back to what I was saying about the people going to super slow-mo, which the Department of Play and Safety would do as well. And the contact wasn't initially with the head, but he came in like a cruise missile. Carlo's engaged with Verana already. He's unsuspecting. He was targeted. And it doesn't matter what happened earlier in the game or earlier in the game before with Ovi or whatever. You know, fight him. Fight him then. But the instigator sometimes clouds that up. And that brings me to something else I'll touch on in a second. Point is, Tom Wilson's a moron. And any of his supporters are bigger morons. And the suspension was warranted. And when he does it again, God willing, they do throw the book at him. They suspended Chris Simon in the same calendar year over 2 seasons, a total of 55 games. 25 games and 30 games. That's where we're heading with this guy. We're heading there. And I don't think he can change it. It's reminds me of the movie Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood and the dickhead sergeant major there, whatever the guy was, younger guy that had the conversation with him. And he's talking to Clint when they have their first meeting in the office, and he's going, sooner or later, something's going to happen. You're going to get drunk, or you're going to get insubordinate, or you're going to not like something, and you're going to swing on somebody. You're going to do something stupid. You're going to get yourself thrown out of the army again, or really knocked down again. I remember that line. I was thinking that too. This is it with Tom Wilson. To me, it's just a matter of time. I don't think this leopard can change his spots, and I think we'll see it happen again. That said, all in on the 7 games, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously going to be back with lots of raceway here for the rest of this season. So I'm pretty sure they must have games left against. Look, he fought twice that game. I mean, Jared Turnorty did a little bit of a step dance on him. Not much. Give him the edge in the fight maybe, but whatever. Trent Frederick, who's becoming my new favorite player in the NHL. Guy's got more balls, I'll tell you. And that's the second fight he's had with Tom Wilson. He didn't do that. He didn't do as well as he did in the first one, but you gotta give him credit. Anyways, I would have kept sending guys out there. I'll tell you what, I say to people all the time, if you were an owner, boy, if I was an owner, Tom Wilson wouldn't have finished that game. I would break so many rules behind the scenes. I said this last year on Liam's Hockey. I would have cash on that bulletin board, and I'm not talking $100. I would have a significant amount of money. I would bring guys in. I would sign guys to PTOs. I would have guys on two ways. I would bounce them on a taxi squads and put them on waivers after they did what they needed to do. And what you need to have somebody do is take guys like him out of the game. If the NHL isn't going to do it, me as an owner, I would do it. Plain and simple. Yes, I'm very old, and yes, I'm very old school. I would absolutely, unequivocally, 100,000% not put up with that garbage. It is ridiculous to me that some of these clowns are running around. And you know, not to condone what happened back in the day, because some good guys got hurt. Both who I knew. One since passed away, Brian Glennie. Brian Glennie and Dennis Polonich, hard-nosed guys, no problem dropping the gloves. Different positions, Polonich forward, Glennie defenseman. Both had different degrees of success in the game at different levels and things of that nature. They also were really good at getting under opposition's skin. And in Polonich's case, it was with Wilf Payma. And in Brian Glennie's case, it was with Dan Maloney. And in both instances, the reaction from both of those aforementioned men was paramount to attempted murder, really. I mean, what they did on the street, you would have been charged with attempted murder. That's just the way it was. If you had guys continually pushing that envelope, and even though Dan Maloney and Wilf Payma, two guys very accomplished with the gloves off, and both of their victims were guys who were equally happy to drop the gloves. The incidents that led up to it led to frustration levels where those egregious acts took place. And there was significant repercussions, especially in Wilf Payma's case. It's the largest out-of-court settlement in NHL history. I don't know if Moore Bertuzzi has ever been fully settled out of court or not. It may have been. Just thought of that, perhaps, but it would probably surpass it. But given these incidents were in the 70s, that's why guys didn't get suspended 5 times in 4 years. If you pulled this stuff a couple times in a row, you had to answer the bell even a whole lot more than Tom Wilson did in that game. And it wasn't just you that had to answer it. Your teammates had to answer it with you. You would have dragged them into a line brawl, or more often than not, the benches would empty. I think of a guy like Ken Linsman. And when he came to the NHL from the WHA in his rat style, which started in junior, and it went on, and it got to the point where it reached a breaking point against LA. In fact, we're coming up to the anniversary of it. It was March 11th, 1979, and you can Google it. It's one of the most significant brawls in NHL history. Bench clearer, multiple fights, some incredible fights. I mean, Randy Holt and Paul Holmgren, probably one you should check out anyway. All of that was precipitated from the game before and a series of games by Ken Linsman's antagonistic play on the ice. Came to a head, his teammates had to get in on his behalf, and the bench is empty, and it was Brawl City. But what would happen is, you'd go to the dressing room, and then if not that day, that night, next day at practice, or on the train, or on the plane, or whatever, your teammates would say, cut that crap out. Cut it out. Like, you fight your own battles. Like, we got your back, 2-on-1s and stuff like that. Everybody's going, we're in. Are you going to run around like an idiot? No, that's not happening on our watch. That was actually said back in those days. What do you got here? You got everybody coming out defending Tom Wilson from Washington. His teammates. Oh my God. I know you gotta, right? He's your teammate. And I'm not saying back in the 70s or before that they went out vocally against their own teammate, but behind closed doors, they said, no, enough's enough. Hey, look, Pittsburgh made it public about Matt Cook and said, look, we've told him, that's it. And, but I mean, how many people got to get hurt? And it's, look, incidents are going to happen. They always will. It's full contact sport. These are alpha males, primarily in their 20s. It's big business on the line. Their livelihood, different classifications. I know everybody makes a good buck today. But back in the day, too, man, you're taking money out of your pocket if you're not making the playoffs or advancing to through the playoffs. It meant so much to so many players to have that opportunity. Not the least of which everybody wanted to get their name on the cup. That's why they play the game. But there was repercussions felt internally on teams as well back in the day. Anyway, I agree with the suspension wholeheartedly, and the next one he has, I hope it's 30 to 40 games, if not potentially more, because he's a train wreck. And this chatter about him for Team Canada, give me a break. Do your own roster. For God's sake, if you're somebody who thinks that, write down your 12 forwards, include him in it, and take a look and see who's not going to be on. And tell me where there's a place for him. Why? Because he can go in on the forecheck against the best other defense and teams in the world. Do you think Tom Wilson's going to intimidate anybody on Finland or the United States or Russia? Are you kidding me right now? You're even more moronic than the people who think that was a clean hit. There's not a hope in hell he's making the team. He certainly wouldn't be on mine. And I don't think we need guys like him. We haven't needed guys like him, the multiple wins we've had internationally, that's for sure. Especially just Olympics with the NHL guys playing, 2002, 2010, 2014. Who's been Tom Wilson on any of those teams? Don't need a guy like that who could potentially even imagine the penalty potentially he could take. And with international refereeing on top of that, it's all well and good that it's on NHL-size ice. I'm very thankful for that. But we're not getting NHL rules in the Olympics. You're getting double IHF rules. No place for him there. None whatsoever. Anyway, and look, segueing into the officiating. Anybody who's paid to comment on the officials from last night's Calgary-Ottawa game has no guts to say it was the worst officiated game I've seen this year. And I guarantee you, I've seen more than just about, if not everybody that's watching this right now. That officiating last night was a joke. It was a farce. It was unbelievable. The Senators got screwed 7 ways to Sunday. 8 power plays. I don't care about the numbers. I'll tell you, the last time that I saw a game that poorly officiated was the women. Was it 2002 in the Olympics against the States when there was obviously somebody was paid. Obviously behind closed doors, somebody got paid. And in 2002, there's no doubt about it. A parade of women to the penalty box, like it was last night for the Ottawa Senators. Look, I say to my son all the time, we text during the Hab games all the time, and we talk about the calls, and oh God, they're so brutal. When they went to the 2 referee system, officiating started to go downhill, and it has spiraled right now. Maybe partly because the same groups are staying in the same, so you're seeing the same teams, seeing the same guys. Maybe you've lost touch, I don't know. Last night to me was a question of ineptitude coupled with an incredible lack of respect. Ottawa's one of the worst teams in the league. They're an easy out. We'll just call them. And it wasn't just so much that they called Ottawa for 8, it's what they didn't call on Calgary. It was incredible. The exact same play would happen. Exact same play. No call, Calgary. And then 20 seconds later, Ottawa in the box. Unfreaking believable. Worst I've seen, and it continues to get worse. 80% of all calls are ridiculous, and it's a tragedy. I don't know how they're going to fix it. Again, goes back to what I said. If you're an owner, you got to get on the horn. Who's me? I'm sitting here in my home in Osgood, about to have a shot of whiskey. Going to tell the owners of the NHL what to do. But I'll tell you what, the ones who pay the freight are the fans. And if you don't think they're fed up, how anybody who's paid to comment on that last night, and I'm talking about analysts and I'm talking about people who are on the radio today, grow a pair and say exactly what it was. That was ridiculous how brutal it was. Next, Speaking of fighting, which I love. I love the fact they can still drop the gloves and have a 5-minute major. That, of course, differentiates me from a lot of the left-wing liberals in the media who would, I think, really would love contact taken right out of the sport. I'm not going to go down that road. Let's just talk about a couple things I saw in the last 48 to 72 hours. Speaking of the Wilson scenario, when he was in the box serving that 5-minute major when Tenorti tagged him, basically won the fight, even though, of course, Tom Wilson's a tough out. He's tough as nails. But Jared Tenorti beat him in that fight. And it's so great to see Jared playing. I mean, you turn the clock back a few years, I never thought he'd see the light of day in the NHL again. Figures, of all teams to pick him up, it would be the Bruins, who I touched on a week or two ago, who haven't changed their style in 50-plus years. You hurt one of us, we're coming. That's just the way they operate. And even though they didn't get their pound of flesh out of Wilson, Tenorti fights him. Boston starts scoring. Who gets the first one in that series? Trent Frederick, by the way. They start scoring. After their first or second goal, what happens? Patrice Bergeron goes over to the penalty box and taps the glass right in front of Tenorti. One of the most respected guys wearing skates in hockey in the world acknowledged what his teammate did fistically. That was so beautiful to see. Want even a better example? How about Connor McDavid? Is there a better player on skates in the world than him right now? No, there isn't. There's nobody close. In the Battle of Alberta the other night, playing the Calgary Flames, a game Calgary probably should have won. Edmonton snatched victory from the jaws of defeat there, largely on McDavid. 2 assists, scores the winner, 3 and change to go. 2 fights in the first period, including Darnell Nurse, and I know him and Connor have gotten really, really close. Darnell fought Lucic. He fought about 4 years ago when Lucic was in LA. And Lucic is a beast still, man. I don't know. I think his back's getting better. He's looking better. He's skating better. And he's scoring a little bit. And I've seen him in 2 or 3 fights this year. And anyways, he got the better of Nurse. And the other scrap was to Chuck and James Neal. What does Connor McDavid acknowledge? First comments post-game. First comments. They just won an emotional game. He got the winner on a beauty. Draisaitl picked up points. Mike Smith was outstanding. First thing Connor McDavid acknowledges was the 2 fights and the guys who fought on behalf of Edmonton in those fights. So you know what? Bleeding hearts, libtards, for God's sake, drinking your Shirley Temples, playing tiddlywinks. Stay the hell out of the kitchen if you can't handle the heat. These are alpha males that get pissed off and still want to go sometimes. And there's a lot of friction and a lot of fractiousness and a lot of guys just want to get it on. I know I would. And I loved it. I love the fact that Connor McDavid and Patrice Bergeron were 2 shining examples of how fighting is still a respected and highly regarded part of the game of hockey at the National Hockey League level. The best league in the world. Alright. What else? I don't wind her down. Habs are playing tonight. Coming off a 7-1 win over Winnipeg. Was hardly 7-1. They got every single bounce known to mankind. They were due. They were due, starting with Anderson's goal. They gotta fix that breakout, man. Let's see what happens tonight. They've had success against Vancouver, but Vancouver's coming off 2 wins against Toronto. That's the way it goes, eh? Toronto waxes Edmonton, goes into Vancouver, loses 2. They just weren't into it. I'm sorry, Vancouver. Don't mean to take anything away, and maybe you wax the Habs tonight and keep it going. I don't know. But Leafs got nothing to worry about yet. Not in terms of the scoreboard, but I'd be a little concerned about Austin Matthews. You know, coming back from the wrist. He hasn't scored since, and he had an open net, basically. He had 3 quarters of net to shoot at with $1.05 to go. Would have made it a 1-goal game. When that play happened, I said, oh boy, they score here, look out. They'll tie it up. Convinced they would have tied it up. Anyway, he missed the net. I mean, it looked like he looked, anyways, he's fighting that wrist still, I think. That's a concern if you're a Leaf fan. But overall, losing 2 at this stage. they'd have to put their skates on backwards to fall out of the playoff race here. The North is so inferior to the other three divisions. I know none of you watch the other games, so you just watch your team, and if your team wins and 3 or 4 guys play well, you think we're right there. We're right there. We can compete with anybody. No, you can't. No, but you're not watching the games. So, anyway, it's all good. It's all good. All right, let's get set to wind this puppy up. I don't think I have too much more to say. I know I've been off for a few days. I'll tell you what, it was a brutal week. Had the operation last week, and just a string of passings. It just seems to go that way, you know. Walter Gretzky, I want to thank everybody for all the nice comments. I've been doing these for a few years, you know. I think there's something innate in me, but my Irish origin, because that's something that the Irish are renowned for, either storytelling, reminiscing, or certainly eulogizing. And I really firmly believe that. My late father was born and raised in Dublin, and I think I've just got something that's inherent from the country in my soul that allows me to string together these thoughts and stories and remembrances and reminiscing about these people who have gone before us, in some cases sadly, tragically, or in other cases after a life well lived. And you know, you can say Walter Gretzky at 82 years of age, I mean, he should have died 30 years ago after that aneurysm that led to the stroke, as I wrote. So I thank everybody for the comments. They were very nice, so nice, really nice, much appreciated. Danny Vahi, an Osgood resident here, longtime Ottawa police officer, and I'll write a little bit more about all these people. He died the same day, I believe, or the next day, same age, I think, 82. Legend here in our area, legend. His children, his boys, right behind me in elementary school, right behind me in high school. Just a fantastic family. You know, Greg Yeldon, speaking of St. Pius, class of 78, Greg Yeldon loses his mother and a sister-in-law in 24 hours. I mean, come on. To cancer. They both weren't healthy, but it doesn't matter, right? I mean, just think of that loss that family had to endure in a 24-hour period. It's unfreaking believable. This is all last week. It's just every time I turned around, it was somebody else. Chris Schultz from TSN. He's my age. Heart attack. He played football with Danny Petchnik, who died a few years ago, at the age of 50. It's a few years ago now for sure. It's like 5 or 6 years ago, I think Danny passed away. And Chris Schultz played in the NFL, played in the CFL. I used to do a lot of radio with Chris. Not a lot, but I'd have him on my various shows over the years. We had our own little thing. Anytime I had him on, I did it early on. It just stuck for whatever reason with him and I. And I'd say, Schultze, talking football, I'd say, Schultze, time to discuss, dissect, and disseminate. And he'd say, let's get it on, Liam. I'm not a huge football guy. I certainly don't have much knowledge per se. Not like I feel I do hockey. But I do my research and be ready to go, and you had to be, because this man could really bring it. And I was so sad to hear of his passing, which was right in there as well. And then, as if you couldn't throw any more at us, my roommate here, Peter Oliver, one of my longest and closest and dearest friends, 40 plus years, big family, 8 children, and one of his sisters passed away, Janie. She went by Janie, and just a firecracker of a woman, man, I'll tell you. A spitfire of a woman, and in the Oliver tradition, because they're all tough, every one of them. And they're just great people, great family. The parents have passed on, but Ollie, as I call him, has been living with me for a little while. It's like the 3rd time. Lived with me at the ranch, and him and his son, and now he's back. And I love the guy dearly. And his sister died on Saturday morning, I believe, or late Friday night. That's the week. I mean, Jesus. Hey, we're at that age, but I mean, give me a break. Oh my God. Yeah, so I'm going to blame that one on the cast. I couldn't quite pour it. But before we do the toast to those that have passed, get on to the sponsors here and start with AdSeal and my buddy Mark Cullen. So AdSeal is it's a waterproofing company, okay, for commercial businesses. Membrane systems. If you think of plazas, any new buildings, plazas, buildings, bridges, anything that's being built commercially has to undoubtedly have to have some sort of waterproofing or sealant treatment done for their obviously longevity and well-being. This is what AdSeal does. This is what AdSeal does. And Mark's their chief cook and bottle washer. He's jumped on and put a few ads on here and sponsor my shot of whiskey. And I'm really thankful to have him on board. And people say, oh God, well, geez, promote something like that. Who's even around that could talk to something like that? Well, no, hey, listen, we got people right here in our area, man. We got Kevlar. We got Kevin Mulligan and Larry Scholdice are putting up more new buildings than you can count a stick at. Those buildings need to be waterproofed. They may even have an affiliation with AdSeal already. Who knows? But anybody that's involved in putting new structures up has to inevitably come to a company like Mark's. And their service, their estimates, their punctuality and finishing jobs on time, on budget, the business acumen, and believe me, this comes from the top because that's how this man operates. They are first and foremost in that. So we welcome him on board over the next few weeks. He'll be every other week or so for a while. Going to sponsor my shot of whiskey. So glad to have you on board, Mark, and on behalf of AdSeal, and thanks very much for jumping on to Liam's Hockey. Nick Georgitis. Say that 10 times, and I probably pronounced it wrong, but for you old-time Ottawa people, Nick's late father, Gus, and I think his brother, John, they had a series, 3 or 4 service centers around Ottawa for years, back in the day when Gus came over from Greece. Obviously, that's a Greek name. They got Greek origin, and those people know how to work. And as I mentioned, Nick, as I mentioned at the start of the show, Nick's just recently retired from the Ottawa Fire Department as a captain. Thank you, sir, for your service as a first responder in this fantastic city and region of ours. And meanwhile, like most firefighters, they had a second occupation. The guy's a full-time firefighter, and almost for the exact same length of time, he's got a fully operational garage at Enterprise Avenue, 16 Enterprise. That's in the business park right off of Maryville. Just past Slack on the right-hand side if you're heading north. Piece of cake to find. Beautiful setup, beautiful operation. And like most of the garages we promote, they do the full body, full maintenance, and the whole 9 yards. But here's something a little bit different that I like about Nick's automotive service. They have made note online that they can, will, and are able to handle fleet services. Now, you think of how many people you know. I know lots that have fleet operations. Could be 5, could be 8, could be 10, could be Tomlinson's, could be Kavanaugh's, could be whatever. But they are equipped and able to operate on fleet operations. And you know the way that is. You hit the Ks, you want the oil changes, you want the brakes done, you want whatever. Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 vehicles. They'll do 30, whatever. And I think that's pretty cool. So you got that going for them as well at 16 Enterprise, Nick's Automotive Service. And great to have them on board on behalf of Hosey and Brown Automotive. And Nick, congratulations on your retirement, but it sounds like you're going to be getting right back under the hood. And just one last point on them as well. I love online watching anytime you go online, you see photos of garages, and they've got the old vehicles out there, all prim, proper, looking absolutely gorgeous, like they came right off a movie set. Like people who work on vehicles like that, whether they be their own or people come to them for that type of work, it just, to me, and they're promoting it by showing the pictures, it just shows an extra layer of care and concern for your vehicle. So you're just going in, for regular maintenance work, which they obviously do, or maybe you're going to call them up and inquire about bringing your fleet in for service. This is obviously a family business that goes back 30 plus years but has its origins back 50 plus years, that you know you're going to get taken care of. So, Nick, great to have you mentioned here today, courtesy of Hosey and Brown. Congratulations again on your retirement. Again, to all those who passed last week, and I'll write a little bit more about this down the road. Just not really in a position to right now. It's a bitch to type. But, condolences to all the families and friends and relatives, and let's everybody stay safe and be well. That was a good shot. Giddy.